Don Shanahan,
Ian Simmons.
welcome. We're here to talk about a movie, and I
Hmm.
think we might have a little bit of a dogfight over
Ooh, I hope so. I hope so. I'm rooting
o-
for it.
over Cruella. Now, first of
Yeah.
all, you are Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson, and 25 years later
Hmm.
presents, I guess,
Yeah.
Cinephile Hissy Fit,
Hmm.
the blockbuster new podcast. Well, it's not even new. You kind of discussed this
We're
on a recent
eight,
episode.
eight or
You're like
nine in. Yeah.
2 months in now or something.
Hmm.
Yeah. So really great stuff. And I feel like we might be following. I'm not going to use a timer or a fancy bell like you do on your show,
Hmm.
but this is definitely probably going to be like a going round for round, love it, hate it kind of a
All
discourse
right.
here. So
All right.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also not because this movie really bothered the hell out of me.
Uh-oh. Here it goes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All
Safe
right.
to say that you enjoyed it.
I
I
did.
believe. Okay, and you
Hmm.
actually went to you're one of the pioneering critics. You are going back to the movies to see
I
these
am.
things.
No, I saw it on the big screen this past week, and I do think high level thoughts in already jumping in. I do think that helps. It is a movie with enough flair of not the fanciest camera work in the whole wide world, but enough sound, enough visuals, enough colors that it does play a heck of a lot better on the big screen than if I were to sit in the couch over there and put it on Disney Plus. I don't know how well this movie will sell on Disney Plus because this is a bit of a tough sell anyway. PG-13 origin story of a villainess, and I don't know how well that is all that like who wants this movie and who needs this movie. Those are two very fair questions you can put here. But if you're gonna go there and make this story, they do it with some big screen flair and something I can kind of tip my hat and say, you know what, for the big screen, throw that music in, put that that Brit rock soundtrack in there of different I can't say very deep cuts whatsoever. It's
Mm.
songs we've all heard in other movies in better places, but it gives this movie a different feeling and energy that it's a suitable big screen movie. And I at the same time found enough fun where I didn't try to plug it into anywhere else, and I didn't try to, oh gosh, what's the lazy comparison? It's not the Joker. I could care less if it's riding on coattails of other things. It's its own thing, and Emma Stone's talented enough to keep my attention and go for it. Is it evil enough? Actually, it's probably not evil enough, and that's something I can say is a detriment that keeps it from being really off the chain. But then I look and go, oh look, it's Disney. It was never going to go there. I'm surprised they got away with what they got away with in the first place.
Now let's rewind the tape a bit because
Hmm.
I have not seen the original 101 Dalmatians.
Oh,
If I've
see,
seen
it's
it
a
all the way through,
yeah.
it's been 20 years, and it's been about as long as I've seen the Glenn
Okay.
Close remake.
Oh, see, I that's one I don't remember it, but the animated one is a staple in this house. Let me tell you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the origin story of the rich, evil skeleton lady with the
Mm.
weird hair who wanted to make
Yes.
a coat out of Dalmatians.
Uh huh.
Why did she want to do this? I mean, we kind of find out, I guess, in this movie.
Hmm.
But was there ever a reason given in the original? But
No.
can you set up the original film for me? Like,
Sure.
yeah.
Original film is you have a sad sack Londoner who has a dog and is kind of doesn't leave the house, kind of an aspiring musician. And this movie is told completely from the mostly the point of view of the two dogs in question. One is owned by a man, one is owned by a woman who they meet in kind of happenstance at the park and kind of an orchestrated, wow, she looks good. Let's go on a walk to the park and run into that girl. And it's the male Dalmatian going after the female Dalmatian, and then the husband and wife, they get married after the meet cute in the park. And the Cruella Deville character is an old friend, kind of like one of those like, oh yeah, I still know her. I don't know if we're really all that tight, but it's kind of that loud friend from high school. You're like, oh yeah, how you doing? Oh, that's great to see you. Like you're not tight, and you're kind of embarrassed that you know each other, but at the same time, she's your rich cool friend because she's this fashion. Well, in this movie, she's a fashion designer. Back in the other movie, she's just a cigarette holder weird person who just wants fur coats, and she's got her two little underlings. And but no profession, no origin, no call to arms comes from the animated movie short of, damn, those puppies would look good as a coat, and that's all I want.
Hmm.
um this movie obviously puts layers to that, where uh, you know Dalmatians are, I guess, more of a trigger and a thing, and then all of a sudden it's a gift at the end that turns in, because those two puppy, spoiler alert, those two
Well,
puppies
yeah,
you see at the end.
we're gonna get into spoilers here.
Yeah.
We can't talk about the movie to the degree that I
No,
want to without giving everything away. So if you haven't
but
seen it,
I'll sum this down and say,
yeah,
like most Disney classic movies of the golden era, this is a villain with one note. Well, I could with zero origin and all in your face intentions.
hmm
You know, like for example, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, evil by looks and by dialogue and by actions. Zero past other than little hints here, little hints there that I was this and I was that. And then Angelina Jolie makes it a rape story and we go from there. So yeah.
I don't think she did. I'm pretty sure the filmmakers did. But
No. Yeah.
now let's. But okay, so that's a great summation of the
Uh,
Dalmatians from what
yeah.
I remember, at least the broad strokes. Let's
hmm
talk a bit about these Disney live action
Yeah.
remakes. Now they haven't all focused on the villains, but the villains have
Hmm.
been the most the biggest draw. I think I
Sure.
was a big fan of Maleficent. I did not bother with the second one because I heard it was awful. And at the end of Maleficent, I was like, this is a nice one-off story that worked beyond all odds. I'm
hmm
happy to just close the book on it. I think they did take a pretty one-note character and give her, part of it was
Yeah.
performance and part of it was just the story that they went with. I think evoked a lot of classic Disney, and it was a good movie. Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, I think, is still the high watermark for me as far as these live
hmm
action things. And even though that wasn't a villain origin story, the backstory we get with Kate Blanchett and the
Yeah.
crazy, like not
Given a
crazy,
few
but
more
the
things.
crazy good character that she builds
hmm
as the wicked stepmother, I think is, one of the big selling points of that film, besides the costumes and the and the practical sets.
hmm
Um, so what I'm sure I'm missing
Yeah.
others because I know they've sequelized a bunch of stuff and all that. But
Yeah.
what do you make of these this direction that Disney's going?
I uh, it's weird because I think the ones that are daring and take the most chances are the better movies, yet the ones that are carbon copies are the ones that are the most successful. I mean, Lion King made $1 billion being a digital shot for shot, felt like a very shot for shot remake. And Beauty and the Beast, same. Like you've got a shade or two here of different character strokes, but really they're just playing for the greatest hits in a different form. And those are the two highest grossing ones they've ever done. And then here comes Aladdin doing its own version of a shot for shot, and that also made $1 billion. It didn't make $1 billion here, but it raked overseas. The ones I felt that were most challenging and tried to do different things, Cinderella included. I think Cinderella had way more depth, and that's Kenneth Branagh bringing some Shakespearean tone in there because it's Kenneth Branagh. And my high watermark is Pete's Dragon because it's completely different than all of the ones. It's not trying to be the old one whatsoever, other than the fact that it's a dragon in green. That's it. And Maleficent is the one that I probably need to rewatch. It fell really short for me the first time I saw it because it was just like Sleeping Beauty is my number one favorite animated one. So I'm like, well, why are we even trying to make this villain what it is? And then and then by the time she's the kiss that wakes up Sleeping Beauty, I'm like, come on, like by the time that movie really overscoops the sympathy ice cream at the end, it lost me. But I admit it took the most chances and looks the best and probably plays the best, or up there. So I'm that person who goes, you know what, I'm going to watch them because they're fun and they've tried to find some eclectic people to make these movies, but at the same time, they feel so much like a cash grab, and why. So I'm happy that this movie Cruella is trying for something we haven't seen and not just a 101 Dalmatians live action remake because we've had that already. So I'm glad it's trying something different, and I appreciated what they did. It's just again I'm fully aware that why and for who is still a big question mark even for this movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't talked a whole lot about this remake
hmm
phenomenon. I've talked, I've done other shows about the live action remakes, but tying them all together is something that's kind of new for me.
hmm
I think Maleficent, that was a blockbuster
It
success.
made good
I mean,
money.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it didn't
huge.
make the money of the ones that came after, but it opened the
Right,
door.
but yeah, and I think opening the door is the key because it proved to Disney like, hey, people want this. I
hmm
think the reason we might see Lion King and Aladdin, Dumbo, I can't remember how well that did, but it was just atrocious. But
Yeah.
I think I feel like I want to say it didn't do as well as Lion King and Aladdin. I wonder if it's
It did
something to
not.
do with the age of the source material,
That
because
could
you're
be true.
talking about, Maleficent, which is older, uh,
Hmm.
but it was also kind of out of the gate. It was like the first thing, it was new, so people wanted to go
Yeah.
see it. But then you've got something like Cinderella, and let's just say Dumbo didn't perform as well as Lion King and
Hmm.
Aladdin. Aladdin and Lion King, those movies are like 30 years old.
Yeah,
You've
from the
got people,
90s. Yeah.
yeah, they've got the kids and they're taking their
Hmm.
families to go see it out of a curiosity, whereas the people who are fans of the originals, they're pushing
Yeah.
100.
Yeah. But they're
um
dead. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Oh.
just trying to be generous.
I
But
know, but here we go. But this movie is that way too. Like,
it
unless you
is.
purposely put a kid in front of 101 Dalmatians, they might not know what this movie is.
And I think, the key, if I had to assume that they were going to try and hook a modern audience, is by having very modern sensibilities in this
Mhm.
story. And I think that's the thing that, it's not necessarily, I had that Joker comparison too going into this, because I saw the trailer and I thought,
See, you
this
know me.
looks, well,
Trailers.
yeah.
Yeah.
And in some respects, I understand, I appreciate that, but in other respects, I kind of want to have some idea of what I'm in for.
All I needed was Emma Thompson, Emma Stone, and origin story, and I was there. I didn't need anything else. So I saw the images and pictures that came out of it with the interesting costume, and that's as far as I got. But I did not watch the trailer. I've heard the trailer gives serious Joker vibes, and that's marketing departments riding coattails of other successes, and we've seen that 1,000 times. So
And it's sad because,
yeah,
again,
shouldn't have to.
well, it's also gets back to your question: who is this movie made for? Like, if I'm a parent, I don't want to say, "Oh my God, there's a movie coming out for my 8-year-old daughter that's based on the Joker movie, the
Oh, I
Joaquin
know.
Phoenix, Todd Phillips
Yeah.
directed Joker film." Like, no one's thinking like that,
Hmm.
right? It's just odd. But no, this movie, I think, is, we use the term, it's not evil enough. I think it's plenty evil. I think
It's evil for sure.
no, and I'm not talking just about the story of the characters. I'm talking about the ideas behind it and the
Mm.
messages that it's putting out there.
Ooh, good,
It's
fair
very
point.
much, it's set, it starts in the 60s, and it, kind of comes of age in the 19 mid 70s, but
Okay.
the philosophies and everything that's being espoused is very much 2021.
Hmm.
Down to, we start off with, of course, there's a broken family because it's a Disney movie. I
Of course.
would love for Disney to just try and make a movie with an intact family. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. Why, getting off a sidetrack here, why do you think that is? What's your read on that?
Um, is there a backstory somewhere where Walt himself is an orphan or has taken in orphans? I don't
He's
know.
been dead a long time though.
I
Unless that's in his
I'm
will
not
where
going to
he's
get that
like,
interview get. You're right. You're right. I'm not going to get that get. I'm not sure. I got a fun sidebar fact that goes with this. My daughter is 8 going on 9 here in this coming February, and she's a big reader and bookworm. And we found at the library a Cruella book, and it was meant to exactly be what we watched, an origin story of Cruella de Vil. And before, when I came home from this movie, I said, now I had wondered, like, because she just read it in passing. I didn't read it over her shoulder, and I wasn't going to read it before
was
the
it
movie.
new, or is it an older
It's a
book?
newish, it's a
Okay.
newish kind of. I don't want to say it's a young adult. I think it's tame enough for the kids to read, but it was a thick chapter book. It wasn't just some little golden book. And I asked her. I said, "Hey, what happens in your Cruella book?" Because I just saw the movie, and I was wondering if Disney had like source material they pulled from, and it's not like the intact family in that book, non-intact family in this book, because like she has like a mom and dad and events that happen and gifts in this, and like my daughter gave me this whole plot summary. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not what I watched the other night.
Hmm. It's, yeah. I mean, we'll
So
just,
this is cocktail napkin ideas, and most movies have gotten to the point where they are, but
well, it's just okay. It's interesting because there are no really good, well, there's one, I think, good person maybe in this movie, and that's probably Cruella's or mother. And I know we're
her
not,
the one that
I know
yeah.
we're not, we're in spoiler territory. So again, folks, if you have
True.
not seen the movie, please turn away
Yeah.
now and come back later. But the lady who is the woman who raises Cruella as
Hmm.
her own, or Estella, because Estella is her given name, her birth
Right.
name. but Cruella is the sort of weird alternate dark
It's
personality version that
it's
she
your
tucks away inside. Like this film has
yeah
like strange things about mental issues and multiple personality disorder. Um,
yeah.
and the good-hearted mom is oft early on. It was I watched this movie with my wife as she was making the
Mm.
grocery list
Oh
on the
boy.
couch next to me, and very early on she stopped doing the grocery list and was just like watching with me in horror for 2 hours. And at the end
Hmm.
of it, she's like, "God damn it, I didn't finish the grocery list because I was watching this shit."
All
But
right.
we both had the hand to mouth moment when at the fancy party, little
Mm-hmm.
Cruella sneaks in and she's got her street puppy and which isn't a
Mm-hmm.
Dalmatian. It
Yeah.
runs and causes havoc at the
Yeah.
fashion show.
Like Disney
Mom
dogs do.
Right.
Yeah.
Mom is out back talking to Emma Thompson, who is the
Hmm.
Baroness, this fashion icon of London in the 60s. And they're having some kind of an argument. The Dalmatians come out, three of them. They charge the mom and knock her over the balcony, plunging over a cliff to her death. And we were both like, what the
I
hell
know.
is this movie?
I I Emmanuel Noisette at that moment in the press screening. I'm like, what? And Leo, shout out Leo Brady next to me, Robert Daniels in front of me. They're like, huh? They just kind of did a little giggle where they felt it too, because yeah, that's a Disney movie that goes evil in a hurry. And I was like, I just did not think they were going to go there. I figured, obviously, I saw Mean Dalmatians coming. I'm like, okay, there's where some fear is going to go, but I did not see push the lady off a cliff moment in the first 8 minutes of the movie. Nope, didn't see
Right.
that coming.
And yeah, again, this we'll file this under who is this for?
Yeah. I had to look up screenwriters here just because I was curious. So a two-person team. We've got Dana Fox, who is known for like The Wedding Date and What Happens in Vegas, the Ashton Kutcher one. So say what you will about that one. I'm pretty sure the headliner writer here is Tony McNamara, who was the co-writer of The Favorite, the Yorgos Lanthimos, the Rachel
which
Weisz, Emma
which
Stone
which makes
movie.
sense. Yeah. Okay.
Because there's definitely some twisted finery going on here, which would suit a movie coming from that.
That that's an interesting combination. I would love to see a documentary about that writers' room or those
Hmm.
collaborations. I loved The Favorite. I thought that was a pretty spectacular,
Yeah,
twisted movie.
but you can't
Um,
tell me someone in that Disney writers room is like Tony, Tony, Tony. No, you can't do that. You can't say cut struck. That sort of stuff. Yeah.
but no, but here's the thing: like the palace intrigue. I mean, now that you make,
Mhm.
because I didn't look this up, and I really
Okay.
should have, but now that you're saying this is from the co-writer of the writer of The Favorite, that makes a lot of sense. But that
Hmm.
sensibility does not belong in a Disney movie,
No.
because one of the problems is, and it comes out, of course, that the Baroness is Cruella de Vil's actual mother.
Hmm.
She was a driven, completely selfish fashion, template who just
Yeah.
wanted, she had a husband who was a complete, kind of a wet dish rag, kind of a
Hmm.
non-entity. She ended up pregnant, which is kind of weird because I can't imagine her like having sex with anybody.
Right.
But when
I'm going to
she
take my
finds,
9-minute nap. While you're there, inseminate me with a baby. Right. Come on.
um, it's love, actually. No,
Right.
but so she finds out she's pregnant. She has the baby, and then has Mark Strong as her kind of second in
Hmm.
command houseboy get rid of it, all like penguin style.
I know.
And so he gives it to the maid, who is the woman who raises Estella slash Cruella, and that's it. It's the big secret. And then later the mom comes back and I guess she was trying to blackmail, or the Baroness thought she was being blackmailed. I think the mom was just like, look, we're living in squalor, can you just help us out a
Yeah.
bit? And she was
Can
like,
you float me 50 pounds? Yeah.
right. And she
Right.
was like, I'm just gonna kill you with my dogs, I don't need to deal with
Right.
this nonsense. I do know who I am. um
Uh-huh.
so we've got and Cruella believes throughout the film that she is evil, especially after she finds out who her mother is, because she considers her mom to be evil, or her,
Hmm.
her natural birth mother. And yet towards the end of the film there's this conflict where she gives this monologue to, I guess it's her mom's grave or her mom's memory or something,
Hmm.
about how she's fully accepted who she is and the rottenness inside of her, and she's going to become this
Yeah.
criminal magnate. And then she's like, but I love you, mom. So there's
Yeah.
still
And it's
goodness
still
in her, I
played by
guess.
plucky Emma Stone too, who can't quite really go evil herself. Like, it's
Right.
at the end of the day, it's adorable Emma Stone.
Yeah, but at the very end of the film, I know
Yeah,
we're jumping around here
we are
because,
jumping around.
but I don't know that we need to deal with every aspect of this film because it's just so weird and random. But at the
Hmm.
very end, she accepts her fate. She takes over the manor because she's had her mother sent to prison for life
Hmm.
for murdering someone else,
Hmm.
um, and she takes over this estate. Everybody's there, her henchmen, her mother's houseman Mark Strong. There's
Yeah.
these creepy fires lit. There's the Dalmatians, and one of the henchmen's like, "Oh, that one's looking a little fat." I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
because they're gonna give birth to the 101 Dalmatians." How the hell does
Hmm.
this tie into the original movie? And
And
then
they,
she's basically like,
yeah.
"I'm gonna be evil now, and the next time you see me, I'm gonna trying to kill these dogs."
Oh boy.
So it is a villain origin story. There are no heroes in this movie. The one hero there is killed, like you said, in the first eight
Yeah.
minutes.
I think there's calming compasses. I can't call them heroes, but Horace and Jasper are given far more to do than they did in the 101 Dalmatians. And I love Joel Fry. He's a good hammy presence in any movie he's in. I saw him in Yesterday a year or two ago. And then also there's a terrible, semi-terrible Netflix romantic comedy of like do-over kind of movie. Was it Love Guaranteed or something with Olivia Munn and all that? But he is Horace, the slimmer of the two henchmen. And I think he's a fun actor in presence anyway, where he's just this cheeky doofus. And of course, is it Paul Walterhauser,
Yeah,
who's
he
who's
was
been in lots of other things, and
he's brilliant, dude. Like every time
oh
I
yeah.
see him, he's a different guy, and it's not.
Hmm.
It's one of those things where I see the name and I'm like, I know that name from somewhere. And then I
Yeah.
see him, and he's always up to new tricks.
Yeah, and here he's reteaming with see the guy who directed this is the I Tanya director as well. So take that malicious female fury and channel that into a Disney movie as well, where I'm sure he's elbowing Tony McNamara in the ribs, going yeah, let's do that, and then Dana Fox with What Happened in Vegas is like, guys, no. So I'm sure I go back to Construct again. So here we go. But no, I think I I feel like those two guys can be a little bit of like I said, not calming compasses was the word, because I feel like they're thieves and they're still having doing these little schemes to kind of elevate who Cruella is trying to be as this competing fashion designer. They're regretting it, but they're kind of they're still dedicated and good to their friend, with obviously with regrets, because we see that with Horace as it gets worse and worse, because of course he likes her. And those two guys are enough fun and enough balance. I don't want to say balance, because that's nothing's going to balance the evilness where it goes, but it's not full on. It's hammy enough that I can be entertained, and PG-13 light, which is surprising.
And I think that's what's so disturbing about it to me is there's this kind of a light and wacky distraction from all the dark stuff that's really going on because
Yeah,
yeah, they're doing these weird kind of jobs that, they've
and
all got
heists, and yeah,
disguises and stuff like I'm a maid, I'm a truck driver,
right.
but they're just stealing from people.
Hmm.
There are street criminals who have been doing this for a long time. First of all,
Yeah.
let's talk about this transition from childhood. I don't remember the actress who played young Cruella. I thought she was
I
pretty
don't
good.
either. She's pretty
Um,
solid. Yeah, it's a cool kid.
but they do that thing where she's like brushing her teeth or washing her hair as the young girl, and then she like lowers her head into the sink and brings it back up to the mirror. All of a sudden, it's at an Emma Stone, and
Yeah.
in voiceover, she says, "And so 10 years later," I'm like, "Wait a second, hold on a second.
Hmm.
10 years from the 10-year-old, maybe 12-year-old
Yeah.
little girl to Emma Stone, who's probably in her
She,
30s."
ooh, I'll do an age check for you. Keep talking.
And I want to know the ages of those
She
other two
is.
guys because
She's 33.
she's 33. And these
She's
other two
33.
guys, Paul Walter Hauser, I know he's
Oh,
on the
they're definitely
younger
older.
side.
Joel Fry, I do not have a birthday for him on
Okay.
Wikipedia. Paul Walter Hauser's got to be our age. Yeah. 86. He's
Well,
30.
he was born in 86. He's not
So
80.
35? 35?
Okay. But
Yeah.
so the point, yeah. So the point is, yeah, 35, exactly.
Hmm.
Um, these people are all supposed to be 20 to 22 years old.
Yeah. And
And
then,
I'm
well,
looking at them,
Emma's, yeah.
I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Okay.
And I understand, oh, you've got older people playing younger people all the time, but it's kind of like that joke on The Simpsons where they had Luke Perry on 90210 and he smiles and like he's got a million crinkles in his
Yeah.
forehead. I'm like, it
Yeah.
just does not work. I know it's a Disney fantasy, but there are some lines I
Yeah.
can't abide.
It's even a Smallville thing for me where like Tom Welling was always like 32 playing 18, you know, like it just, he's a good looking fresh faced guy, but he's 32 years old.
Right. But I do want to talk. So we've got these
Huh.
street urchins who become the sidekicks, who become the henchmen to Cruella de Vil, who
Mm-hmm.
is, they're helping her hatch this plan to steal this necklace because it was her adoptive mom's necklace, but it turns out it was actually her real mom's necklace. And
Mm-hmm.
she felt that she had the right to this necklace.
Yeah.
And so they hatched this plan to steal it. I'm like, as an audience member, it's just an evil person stealing from another evil person
Mm-hmm.
because they want this thing. It's not like, oh, I
Yeah.
really hope she gets this necklace back because it meant a lot to the birth mother or her or whatever. It's like a birthright thing. It's like, no, it's just theft.
No, and this is it. I don't want to say in pro wrestling terms, this is a heel versus heel fight, and that is tricky. It's a tricky sell. What I think helps is Emma Thompson is deliciously evil. Like she goes farther in anything evil than anything Emma Stone and Cruella's doing. Now, don't get me wrong, you have millionaires arguing with billionaires and that kind of thing where it's like pro athlete stuff where everyone's whining, but everyone's a fashion designer and doing great. And Cruella is made to be a more sympathetic because she has this history and she has this cast off little nature to it in true Disney fashion, where calling her a hero is too far, but at the same time she's less villainous than the other one, so the comeuppance is okay, especially because Emma Thompson does everything deliciously way too far in, like, she exceeds Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada in terms of the pointedness of being just a jerk all the time.
And Devil Wears Prada is a perfect comparison. I mean, a lot of people are going to be talking about that.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I'm a fan of Devil Wears Prada.
Me too, but this movie, like, you don't have the comparison isn't necessary, but I know it's easy and it's going to be made. So
Right, and I think, but aptly so, because
that's
as much
fair.
as this is a team up of screenwriters, it's a team up of movies. Because how does Cruella break into the fashion world? She's
Mm-hmm.
just the kind of hired help at this fashion house, and she stumbles into a window one night, and
Yeah,
she ends up, decorating this
yeah.
mannequin.
Oh, I see
So
where you're
the next
going.
morning, she wakes up in the window and she's like, what happened? And
Yeah.
everyone's crowd around staring at her. The boss, the sniveling little James Spader type boss, except he's
Oh yeah,
British, is like, oh,
that was fun
I'm
guy.
about ready to fire her. It's
Uh huh.
done, it's done. And then Emma Thompson walks in and she's like, don't you dare fire this, she's a genius, she's gonna be my apprentice. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
Andrew McCarthy is like suing for royalties right now.
You should.
um
It's true.
so that's again, it just rubs me the wrong. I know there's nothing original, and I've spent the last week in terms of like Spiral and Army of the Dead just like arguing with people. I'm like, no, you can't just
Yeah.
accept this stuff, right? You got, if you're getting paid millions of dollars to write a movie, divide that among 10
Mm-hmm.
screenwriters, to pay them 100 grand each, and you'll get something that's like mind-blowingly original and yet will work. So these two people, the Devil Wears Prada analogy is perfect. I do like Emma Thompson in this movie. I like her performance. I hate her character. I don't like what they do
Mission
with her
accomplished.
character because there's some ambiguity there. There's a great scene where she pulls Cruella aside and she's like, in order to make it, you've got to be, cruel and ruthless and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sympathetic to her, but I'm kind of starting to understand because she is a woman in the mid 1970s who's
Mm-hmm.
at the top of a fashion empire. What kind of crazy Me Too sexist societal bullshit did she have to go through to get to this point?
Mm-hmm.
That's a much more interesting story, especially if you want to go the Prada route, go full on, make Cruella de Vil an Anne Hathaway character who starts, you could take all of this nonsense about the lineage and the necklace and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
intrigue out of it and have a good character, a Disney princess who gets corrupted. How
Yeah.
cool would that be to see
Yeah.
as a
And simpler.
surprising origin story?
That would be simpler and with less schemes. And like the necklace chase is the MacGuffin of the movie. And I think you would that's where this movie, because this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, that's a place where you could trim. Like if you went straight to apprentice who's upset that she can't show her way and becomes this Cruella character of a different fashion designer, one-upping the master without the dumb necklace and the other stuff on the side. That would be fun and simpler and tighter and still just as flashy, just as cool, just as amazing. But the fact that they are weaving a few too many family notes and traits can bog this movie down, and does, because this is too long. As much as I had fun, it's too long.
Well, it's also I want to finish my point about Emma Thompson's character, the Baroness. What they do to, I think, get out of presenting some of those more complicated and interesting ideas is just by at the very end saying, having her come out with this Bond villain monologue about, oh, I've killed way more people than your mom to get to this position. There's bodies everywhere. So they made her like a murderous lunatic, which is essentially what Cruella de Vil is going to become, which calls into question the one other character who did the right thing earlier on in the movie, Mark Strong. It's like, okay, I no longer have respect for you because you are the right-hand person of this. You might have killed people for this woman. At no point did anybody who's on this staff, which is I'm going to step outside for a second and say this is the most racially diverse, high-class, mid-1970s cast I've ever seen. And I get that they're trying to you can't make a movie like they did in the 70s, but it's like with the racial problems that were going on in Britain at that point. No, I don't believe there's a star black reporter on the newspaper that's getting invited to high-end fashion where there's
like you said,
yeah.
Like you said, that's the 2021 liquor distilling in here, because if they took this movie and set it today, just for the fun of setting it today, this all works really cool, because Kirby Howell-Batiste, who plays Anita Darling, has a nice little turn as a journalist. Given enough to do. You do present those two, Cruella and her, as friends, because they will be friends, and that works all right. You have openly gay characters that are working for and part of Cruella's entourage, and all
a
that.
Borderline. I'm going to be very careful here, but a trans person, maybe the shop owner, because he's at the very least Artie. He's at the very least, I don't know exactly how to refer to
my terms too.
them, because I don't know how they identify.
The
when
actor
I saw them,
is listed
very androgynous.
The actor is listed as John McCree, and he's the first openly gay character in a live-action Disney film. So
wait a second. What about? Well, I was going to say
LeFou. Yeah,
but then again, this character Artie, is he openly gay? He doesn't put the moves on anybody, does he?
Well, do you have to have an openly gay character always have a romance, or just
no? But I mean,
into that?
But at any point does he say like, "Oh, he's cute," or "Yes, I'm into guys"? It's one of those things where it's just kind of coded like, "Oh, you can just look at him and tell he's gay," which I think would be more problematic than just not addressing it at all.
Well, I'm okay that they don't have to signal it just for to be like, "Oh, look, he's gay. Look at this guy right here. He likes dudes." Like, we don't. I'm glad they didn't have to signal it. We can just go, oh, if he is, then great.
I'm just getting hung up on what you said about the whole accolade about he's the first openly gay character in Disney. I'm like, I don't know if that's still true.
Yeah. Well, that's what, again, maybe that's Wikipedia overselling this one, but.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing is that character took me out of, I think you're right. This movie would have been better in a 2021 presentation because again, I'm thinking, all right, it's cool
viral
that this guy
news,
owns
all this stuff,
he owns his own fashion boutique in London, but I'm sorry, I feel like he's gonna get like hate crimes or firebombed or something because this was not the most tolerant time and place in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, Warhol was going on in America, but that was not London.
I got it. Do you know what this movie needed to be? This movie needed to be Venom. We're on the wrong comic book villain comparisons. This should be Venom. You've got Eddie Brock, this blogger, failed reporter thing that could be Anita. You've got this symbiotic mean relationship between different people, and maybe Riz Ahmed could show up. Now we've got a 2021 movie. Take the Joker stuff from the 80s. Nope. We should have made Venom. You're right. Tony, Dana, you screwed up.
I'm there with you.
No, I hate that movie.
But I gotta watch that again at some point because
I'll watch it before this next one comes out. But
we talked about that. Were you on that show?
You were on
like
that
everybody
show,
was on that show, but I in fairness, and this may give you some hope as far as my taste, I have no interest in seeing the sequel. I watched the trailer to that movie.
I see.
Here Comes the Carnage. I watched it twice, and I'm like, no, there's nothing compelling about that.
No.
Last thing. there may be some other things to discuss about this movie, but the last high point that got under my skin, and I asked,
Okay.
I picked up on this early on because I'm seeing a lot more in entertainment, and I know this is going to sound like it's another guy complaining about this, but it's true,
Oh.
at least my perception of it. And I asked my wife, I gave her a challenge. I said, probably about 20 minutes, and I said, okay, I want you to pay attention to how every male character in this movie is treated
Hmm.
by the movie.
Okay.
And at the end of it, we kind of came back and did a little test. I'm like, all right, is there any positive portrayal of a male character in this movie? And the answer was no. Um,
I
Getting
well, there's
well,
positive portrayals, but the treatment of them by others isn't the best because, like I said, the calming compasses of Horace and Jasper, I think, are two nice guys who just live the lives of thieves. They're schemers. I can I can Robin Hood and have fun with those two kinds of guys.
well,
And I don't think they're treated badly enough by others to not be taken very nicely. Obviously, Artie is a wonderful, a bubbly spirit of a positive person, but you're right, probably not getting the best societal reaction as the shop owner that he is. Roger, the lawyer, who will eventually be our Roger in 101 Dalmatians, seems like a nice guy. He's got a nice little piano at the end of the movie ready to make a new theme song, but obviously treated like crap by his boss. Every minion underneath Emma Thompson's character is treated like crap. Mark Strong, obviously being the professional movie villain he is, we think he's going to be the assistant bad guy all movie, has a change of heart, but does that really go over the best or get sold the best?
and he has a change back of heart at the end because he's
Yeah,
sitting
because
there
he's like,
lighting the
let me,
fire
let me
of
take
his
a
new,
new evil woman along
yeah.
for her little tour. So, yeah, that's fair. I guess the closest is Horace and Jasper. Best I can do.
And the problem with them is, though, they're also thieves. They're the
True.
charming thieves, they're the rogues, but there's no
Yeah.
balance of like, and I'm not saying you need a Prince Charming like the
Hmm.
old cliche. I just think there's, I'm concerned about the messaging of this movie
Okay.
because if this is a Disney film, I know it's PG-13, but there's a
Hmm.
very big chance when it becomes free on Disney Plus, or there's
Yeah.
even a chance that parents are going to be like, "Oh, it's Cruella. My kids loved
Mm.
101
Oh, Emma
Dalmatians.
Stone's
We'll
so
take this."
fun. Right.
Right. What are
Yeah.
they going to get? They're going to get the message of if you want to be
They're gonna
successful,
they're gonna get that dog death in the first 8 minutes. Woo!
you have to be willing to kill puppies. No, you have to be,
Hmm.
conniving, ruthless. You have to stab everybody in the back. You have to be
Yeah.
willing to hurt people.
Yeah.
You have to shun relationships. Yeah, Jasper was into her, but there is no
Hmm.
sexual attraction, no chemistry. She
No.
has no time for a relationship or a man. Not that
Yeah.
it has to be a man, but just any kind of
No.
romantic love. This is a very cold, dead fish movie. The only warmth in it is
Mm.
snuffed out by three Dalmatians in the opening 8 minutes.
I I think the warmth becomes in the creativity of these characters. Like, I know that their creativity is centered on hellbent evil things, but you know,
The warmth is the flames of
oh,
hell,
and
Don.
yeah, and fashion, which is probably one of the layers of hell too. But like I had enough fun just watching them create ways of messing with each other. Like, I can enjoy an evil versus evil fight and go, all right, how can you guys mess with each other enough to really get it under each other's skin when you're professionals about getting under people's skin? And I was okay with that enough, I but messaging wise, I think you're right because I could step back and go, all right, this one's for us adults, and it's rare that there's a Disney stamp on this to be a for us adults. But like, I've never taken my kid to see this until she's 13, and even then, I'd be like, all right, remember, this is that puppy movie, Crazy Chick, who's going to probably start smoking really soon, and because that's something sanitized from Disney movies, which it surprises me because you're going PG-13. Let's get the cigarette holder and all the smoke. Like, let's really add the evil thing to it. But I know that's been a bit of a we can't show that in movies anymore, which is a bit silly. But because if you we can't ring the bell of comeuppance like, yay, the right people got their comeuppance, because this is just going to lead to worse, and we know it. So it, it it is a hard convincing thing to say. Can you have fun with that along the way? I did, but I'm an adult. I don't know what a teen girl is going to watch out of this movie. Good point.
And that's I really
I'm
the stuff
also, yeah, I'm
I
also
was
surprised there was no love interest. I thought I felt like any moment something's gonna be shoehorned in here. Like, watch Roger be an ex boyfriend of hers, and then get settle up with Anita, which we know in the other movie. And or just anything other than the pining Joel Fry playing Horace. So yeah, I'm surprised.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. I mean, not that
Hmm.
everything has to end in romantic love, but another kind of symptom of a lot of modern films is this idea of the kind of destruction of the regular family, the found family of like, oh, we're friends, and
Hmm.
that we have this bond, and we kind of don't need tradition or romance or love.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
gradually being scrapped away from from a lot of this entertainment that's
Yeah.
ostensibly aimed at children, which is just it just bothers me.
Well, I mean, that's maybe that's you're going to come up with different parents with different takes in that. I'm a stricter one where hey, it says 13. You're probably going to be 13, or I'm going to be sitting next to you while we watch it. So I take those things seriously, but I know plenty of parents don't.
Hmm.
And or like you said, or a kid is an unsupervised kid's going to find this and be like, or what's that say? And and the challenge you kind of put in my head with this question was like, for as much as men aren't looked at very well, I had to kind of go back in my head. All right, well, what about the women? I
Yeah.
mean, can we say that is Emma Thompson been made to look, evil aside, successful and confident enough to be, ooh, that's good for her, despite how horrible she goes with things? And is there enough of Emma Stone, because this is still plucky, beautiful Emma Stone, is there enough of good for her to root for that? And I found myself, at least in the course of a 2-hour movie, rooting for her. But I have to step back and go, wait a minute, who am I rooting for? That future that future puppy killer. Like, oh wait, like so I guess it charmed me more than I thought it would. And going back to the Joker comparisons, I'm okay with that because I'm being charmed by a Disney villain, not a sadistic super killer from a Batman comic book where I don't feel too duped,
Yeah, I mean,
if I could say that.
I didn't care for the Joker movie
I
really at
remember.
all.
Yeah.
Aside from I think Joaquin Phoenix gave a great performance.
Hmm.
He committed to it, but it's like the material that's all around it was what I found
Yeah.
questionable. And I kind of have the same problem here. I'm a big Emma Stone fan. I can't wait to hear you and Will talk about La La Land coming up on the
Ooh,
podcast.
we record in a half hour tonight. I'll let you know how it goes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Hmm.
great. um, but I love Emma Stone, and she has this tremendous light about her,
Hmm.
and that's kind of one of the disheartening things about this movie is, and I understand it's probably a great acting challenge, but it's also symbolic of everything I hate about this movie. Is you're taking the Disney light and hope and the tradition of the family film and
Hmm.
sucking the life out of it into this black and white garish
Yeah.
thing. And I'm sorry, the big centerpiece that was in the trailer, unfortunately, so
Hmm.
I saw it, I knew it was coming, but is also in this movie, is also a ripoff of the Hunger Games. Like she goes into the high
Yeah.
society party, she lights her dress on fire, and then it's like, oh
Yeah.
my god, it's the girl who's on fire, or whatever
Yeah.
that, or is that one
I
of the?
mean, props to the costume designer killing it in this movie.
Yes,
This is Jenny Beavan. She did Mad Max. She did The King's Speech, Gosford Park. Like she's a stud,
dude.
costume designer.
I don't know if it was in the screenplay or the costume or
Hmm.
both, but the thing with the moths,
That
where
was
they're
awesome.
sewing the moth larvae into a
Yeah.
dress so that they
Thinking
could
it's like Gold
hatch.
Nugget. That was cool.
Oh my god, that
Yeah.
I, I if I'm gonna give this movie stars, it's gonna get one extra star just for that bit because that's
Hmm.
brilliant. There's so much in this movie that I would have liked if just the what I'll call the morality compass was just switched a little
That's
further
fair.
north and there was some balance. Because I
Yeah.
like the wacky henchman, that stuff is fun. But then I
Hmm.
step back and I think about it's like, I'm just kind of like rooting for Goebbels here. I mean,
Mm.
not quite nearly that severe, but it's like, can you make a
Yeah.
wacky comedy about Hitler's henchmen? I'm like, no, you can't
True.
because of
True. True.
who they are. They're monsters.
So if this movie went more campy, then because this is still the favorite and this is still I Tanya, like we said with creators, and they went PG-13. If this went more hammy, like Glenn Close hammy, would it play better?
No, I
Because
think
I don't think you can go hammy as this. Like, you can't get villain enough in a hammy level, can we?
well, I think it just goes back to the idea of there's no protagonist in this movie. I mean, there
Mm,
is someone driving the story forward. That's fine,
yeah.
but I don't think that on a higher level there's anyone to root for. That's why I think this movie needs a. I think the corruption narrative is much more interesting than I started off evil. I'm the bad seed, and I'm
Yeah.
never going to try and be good or embrace it. There
Okay.
wasn't even a moment where she like tries to she feels like she's evil. She tries to have that redemptive moment, but then the world slams the door in her face. It's just
Mm,
like there are people who got in the way of her evil schemes, and so she just doubled down and is like, okay, screw everybody, I'm going straight to
yeah.
the top.
And I feel like if the end point of this movie is the lady we see as a delicious villain in the animated film, because she's one of my favorite Disney villains, because she's just the look, the speech, the talk, the darling, all just the eclecticness of that character, even drawn in scribbles with no backstory, is fun enough to just root against. Where what does it take to get there? It probably takes a few doors slammed in her face and an evil influence. Where I guess I was allowing myself to plug in enough wires to go, yeah, I could connect that.
Mhm.
But I
I
see where doing so with sympathy in mind and with no protagonist in mind, like the reporter's not enough. She's more an observant enabler,
and yeah, she
if we
helps
can say
out
so.
towards the
Yeah.
end, which is weird because you kind of get this feeling like, okay, they're introduced as like schoolyard kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, getting
It's
back to
Thunder
the
Force
racial
now.
politics of the 60s,
Yeah.
like it wouldn't have been Cruella being bullied in that all white school
Oh yeah.
because she's got different hair. It would have been
Yeah.
her black friend. Not
Yeah.
endorsing any of this, I'm just saying.
No,
But
but now we're back to Thunder Force, where similar origin stories were like,
oh my god, yeah.
yeah.
But so yeah, there's
Hmm.
yeah, the compass is just off in this thing. And yeah,
Huh.
I think it would have been interesting to go fully dark and tragic,
Mm-hmm.
with this. Like at the beginning, it's kind of like doing the Anakin Skywalker story right, but within 2 hours
Mm.
instead of 3 movies. Have a
Yeah.
character that you really want to root for, but then just have this tragic fall, so that by the end, it really is a movie made for thinking adults, where it's like, wow, this is tragic, and I know she's going to end up a puppy killer, and now I fully
Mm.
understand why, and it's gross, but it's also really sad. Instead of
Yeah.
this is just kind of pathetic.
No, and that's fair, because they do try to inject the fun along the way, because again, we're watching a Disney movie and we're back to the Brit rock easy little montage songs of action happening, and you know
The
I
It's
was
like an
hoping for
iPod
deeper
on
cuts.
shuffle. Every like not even every scene, but like every couple of
It's a lot.
minutes, there's just a new jukebox playing.
Hmm. Which is fun to a degree, but I know a couple of them were challenging, like some of the Beatles ones. They kind of had more of a, I don't want to say a remix, but they had a different bend to it. Like if you were to bend them all and not just throw in the ones we all know, like Queen, like that kind of thing. Like some we can see coming a mile away. Where I'm not saying it's the Spirit in the Sky overused American songs, but we're close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Mm.
thank you for
See, we
indulging
didn't
me.
punch
And
each other up on this. This isn't, I didn't have to get the bell out. We're okay.
well, yeah, and that's I
Mhm.
gotta get the I gotta somehow find a way to capture the magic that you and Will have on your show, because I
Oh
love
no.
listening to you guys spar.
I'm glad. Thank you. I'm glad you do it. Well, I don't. We don't get a lot of audience feedback of our news. So, but no,
I feel like you're pulling your punches on me, because you weren't like arguing with you. You were pretty agreeable
no, but
tonight, Don.
you bring up good points, because yeah, if you're looking for a Disney movie with a moral compass and some shine and shade to go places that are hopeful but understandable, or with motivations, this movie is missing that. If you're okay with an evil good time, it's got, for me, it had enough of that. I was, yeah. I don't think I'm too alone, but we'll find out. We've done this before. You and I aren't afraid of being in the minority on either end of it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm very curious to find out what the critic reaction, also the audience
Hmm.
reaction. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I'm curious too.
on that note, I know you got to run and talk
It's
about.
okay.
This is like your Emma Stone double feature. This is working out well for you.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah. But and so I'll when that episode comes out, I'll link back to it. I think will that be out on
Let's see
Friday the
here.
28th?
We recorded. This is either a week away or 2 weeks away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, because we
if
we
it's
do.
a week away, because that will be that's when this episode drops, the
Hmm.
Dalmatian or try Cruella. So
What
I don't
did we
want to
record the
mess
other
up your
day?
plans, but
No, no,
um,
no. We were hoping to sort of tie it into Cruella week, but we'll see where it goes.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll definitely drop a link to that in the show notes. even if it's 2 weeks away, I'll come back and drop it
Sure.
in because people need to listen to Cinephile Hissy Fit. It's awesome.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
but yeah, thank you for
Mhm.
talking to me about this movie. We'll be talking about other stuff coming up. I know we've got some dates coming up in June when Loki
Mhm.
comes back or
I
starts, I guess.
know.
So
I'm waiting for a clever title to your things. Like we had mission report and the recaps. We need something kishy.
believe me, I'm waiting for it too. But
Okay.
Don Shanahan, every movie has a lesson. 25 years YL or 25, yeah, 25
Yeah.
YL.
25 while. Yeah.
Yes. And Cinephile Hissy Fit. I'm going to say that 30 more times before this episode ends. You guys out there in YouTube land, what did you think of Cruella? Have you watched it? Did we persuade you to
Mm.
watch it or
Mm.
persuade you to not watch it? Please drop your comments down below. Be sure and like and subscribe. Follow Don on all of his platforms. You'll find it in the description. Thank you. I'm really letting you go now. Take care, Don,
All
and
righty.
have fun tonight.
You bet. Take care.
All right, bye.